What is going on, everybody, and welcome to episode 22. I am your host, Marcus, and in this episode, we are talking about why everything happens for a reason. Now, this particular topic was something that I have really been thinking about over the past couple days, even over the past couple months. I've touched on a lot of different things, as people may know, some people may not know. But my father passed away 3 years ago, and from ALS, and ultimately that change has really sparked a point in my life where I see things completely different. And it's that concept about knowing and understanding, that one thing changes your life forever. And you look back on that one event in your life and you tell yourself at that point things could never go back. And so I've really been thinking a lot about this particular topic. Maybe not the general the theme in itself, but just thinking about why things really happen the way they do, and whether it's a relationship or a job change or some major event in your life, things will never be the same anymore. It's knowing that one piece of information that changes your life forever. And I've always talked about how, you follow your intuition and you do specific things in your life, and that is your internal compass. A lot of different times we will look at things logically and try to make sense of it. And, 9 out of 10 times the logical side, perhaps even 10% of the time, right? 10 out of 10 will tell you that, oh yeah, don't do this. It is the wrong choice. And your brain will try to shut it down as quick as possible. But, for me, I've tried to always follow my intuition when I'm aware of it. And it's something that I'm not always in tune to right away, but sometimes it comes to the forefront and is screaming and yelling, saying, hey, this is really off. You should not be doing this. Or this is a choice you should be making. But a lot of times that voice, the intuition is silenced. And so it's working on tool sets. And a lot of times I talk about how, if I do meditation for a long time, sometimes I'll do a relapse, right? And I won't do it as much, or I'll trim down the time. And then I realize that, man, things just aren't feeling the same anymore. And it's because I'm start almost losing touch with that intuition. And when I do meditation, it allows me to become a lot more present. And you realize that being present, you feel a lot better. And so when I start talking about, why things happen for a reason, I do believe things happen for a reason. You've probably heard this statement many times, that things happen or have a purpose to why they are occurring in that given moment. And a lot of times when I look back on a couple of years ago, when I had all these major life changes happening at one time, I asked myself, why did that occur? Why did that particular time in my life? Why didn't it occur when I was younger? When I didn't, when I didn't have so many responsibilities, when I didn't have all these things? Why did it have to happen now? Why did these things fold out to where it was just extremely overwhelming and give me my first panic attack and cause me to rethink life and what I was doing with it? Because a lot of times, I'll be honest, and I think most people can relate to this, that you too are kind of just going with the flow. And life is just guiding you, and you're really not liking where it's going. And when I think about the reasons why, people have come into my life, a lot of times I can't explain it. Sometimes they come into your life to teach you something. Every person or event that happens in your life will teach you something, but it is up to you to determine what that something is. And a lot of times you won't know right away. And this is one of my favorite quotes from Steve Jobs is, A lot of things don't make sense, but when you look back on it, you can piece it together and it makes perfect sense. I'm probably butchering that particular quote, but it was along those lines. And I use that all the time because I do believe when I look back at parts of my life, it starts to make sense on how it unfolded to something bigger and better. And so everything has unfolded, but sometimes it gives you an answer quickly, sometimes it takes it much longer to perform. And sometimes when you get those major changes, like I had a couple of years ago, with my health, with my father, with a divorce, with my job, with everything that was going on during that given time, there was so much going on that life felt like it was over. Like it did. It felt like it came out of left field, even though a lot of the stuff was building up and anticipation was coming. I knew it was going to happen. And then it just all unfolded. Some stuff came out of left field, and it was overwhelming. And to say, the sky was just coming crushing down on me, and I couldn't see past the day. And looking at that, and why would that make sense? Even now, I think it's driven me. I've been more driven than I've ever been in my life. That's not to say that I haven't been driven in my life. I've been extremely driven. I've been extremely dedicated to specific things that I wanted in my life, and I've made the changes. I've made more change in my life than I think a lot of people could say, because I wasn't going to accept and tolerate the way I was living in that current situation. And so I would make the change, but then I would relapse into I'm okay, and I'll just go with the flow. I've gotten to a point to where I'm okay, and I just go with the flow. And then I realize something changes. I talk about how life changes all the time. And when life changes, you start to change, and you start to seek other change in your life. You start acquiring new knowledge as you get older. Perhaps you pursue this knowledge, or perhaps you get an experience in your life that makes you go back to that statement to where from this point forward, life will never be the same. It is forever changed. And my father's passing was one of those moments, the greatest moment, I think, aside from my kids, that really made me put things into perspective, that things aren't going to be the same anymore from this point. There was a time when things were different, and now it's hard to believe life was like that at some point. And so when I talk about this, when I talk about why things happen for a reason, I still try to understand why so much then. Then I realized the steps that I took. I realized that, I made changes in my health. I made changes to my finances, to take hold of my finances, to get out of that 9-to-5, of getting out of the system because of new information I was gathering, and still seeing it unfold, and starting Discover Ignite, and doing other things that I normally wouldn't have done if I just allowed myself to be guided by whatever life was giving me. And so I started looking at the people in my life throughout the times, and the changes that they've made, and lessons they've taught me throughout my life. And have you ever really looked back at your life and looked at those people in your life that perhaps you had that point to where you're thinking, this point is where life will never be the same anymore, or this event will never be the same anymore? And what is the reasoning behind it? And when you start looking and piecing the pieces together, it makes sense why this event occurred then, because this other future event happened. And this is something I've talked about, where, I've talked about how when my father passed, I took some time off and I tried to do things with Discover Ignite. I was trying to do a bunch of other different things. And so being said, I realized that in that span, that was right before the pandemic, everything happened like purposely. Like I did it because I was just completely overwhelmed. It didn't mean I stopped. I kicked it into a different gear, and I was working consistently all the time. Because I remember when I started Discover Ignite, I made videos for, I want to say it was like 260 days straight. I made a video every single day for YouTube, and that's all I did. And then I took care of my health, and I was getting myself back in shape. I was learning about investments. I was learning about all these other different things all at one time. And even to this day, is it making sense? It's making a little bit of sense on why it's getting to a point to where I started branching out. I started doing more. I started taking upon uncertainty more, and being okay with that, and realizing that there's a purpose behind everything, and I'm trying to figure out what that is. And if you look back on your life, what are the people that have come into your life? And I've had, relationships in my life where I second guess, like, what is this relationship? Where is it going? What is exactly, why is this person being introduced in my life, right? That's personal, professional. Why are these people coming into my life? And they teach you something. And again, the underlying reason behind that, you may not know, not now. But on the same token, I try to come at it in the aspect, right? Everybody comes into your life temporarily, right? Whether that is for a short span, maybe it's just a quick interaction, maybe that quick interaction changes your life, because it very well can. Or maybe that person comes into your life and then, for whatever reason, nothing works out, they leave. And, a lot of that, the whole concept, the whole idea that, those things that you want in life, you let it go. And if it was meant for you, it comes back into your life. And so with that being said, there's those kind of relationships you have in your life. And then you have relationships that none of it makes sense, but you can't help but feel that relationship is extremely important to you. And so when you think about these different things, these different people that come in your life, you kind of try to piece it together. Well, what lesson is it teaching me here? And I realize it can get extremely frustrating and try. And this is why I come back, and why I've been thinking about this over the past it's actually probably been a couple months. And I've really thought about this on and off, about what is the purpose of what is going on with the relationships in my life, personal and professional. Why am I, rekindling certain relationships? And it goes back to like intuition, like an unseen guidance onto why these things are happening. And again, it's that butterfly effect, and you don't really understand what is happening, but things start getting in motion, and major events further down the road start happening. And so it not only relationships, but I start looking back on, when leading up to my father's death, and like what was the underlying the changes all to happen at one time? What was the purpose of that? And I'm seeing it unfold to where I took action in my perspective, realizing that life was short, and that, I try to take advantage of every single minute. It's not saying that since then that I've been extremely productive. I don't think I've ever been more productive in my life. I've been productive in my life, and I've always been extremely hard worker and stuff like that. But making strides that benefit myself, if that makes sense, like having purpose in my life, as opposed to doing something because I felt other perspectives, other people, other ideas, I was supposed to match up to them. Now it's more as I match things up to where I want to go, where I want to be, and to let people in my life, personal, professional, know that I care for them, know that, no matter what happens, I have no control over that. You can make changes in your life, but you have absolutely no control. You can tell people how you feel. You can take actions, and you're not going to know the outcome. You can assume you know the outcome, but a lot of times you don't. You take the chance, you take the uncertainty with it, that comes with it. And this is why having no regrets and all these things are so important, because you start thinking about, well, I don't want to live a life where I regret that relationship that I thought would work and I didn't do anything about it, or that job I never took that I should have done something, or yeah, I went back to college, I got my degree, and I got that dream job that I wanted when I was younger. That's the dream job I always wanted. And then you get that and you're like, that's not really what I wanted. I did it because maybe society was telling me that's the way to go. And so I was forced into something that, maybe it pays good or whatever the case is, but not ultimately understanding that really wasn't where I was happy. I do like it because I do like creating things. I love creating things and being there and living that. And how do I live a life that is like that in constant creation and creating new things and realizing that I am in constant creation of myself, and I'm not trying to get out there because that is not all the person I am. And a lot of people, even some of my past relationships, friends and stuff like that, they may probably think that a lot of stuff that I do with YouTube is probably crazy and whack and out there because of the fact of where I've been. Right. I went through a time when I admired my dad for everything that he did, and he was this macho person. And so I did whatever it took to be the most macho person in the room. And I was always trying to prove that to myself, that whatever it took, I would be macho. I would get down and get greasy and do whatever it took, get in those dirty spots and work my ass off. And not only that, but I always try to project that image of that's what I was, that I could handle anything. And I'd put myself, right? It's like a self-induced or self-inflicting damage, right? And I try to do that. I try to expand my horizons. I try to experience things to force myself to be tougher, because I felt like that's the image I should be. And then it's not saying that over the years I've gone soft or anything like that. Not by any means. I am not a soft person. I'm a hardworking person, but I come at things very differently now. My perspective is very different. Things I used to think about plant-based. I used to think about, people on plant-based, right? There's this whole misconception about the whole thing. And no, in meditation, all those things, if you do this, right, it doesn't make you manly. It doesn't do all these different things. It's not at all the case, right? Like you do it for specific reasons. And I think the reasons get lost in everything. And understanding that the why I do meditation is to control my mind, to be able to be creative and realize that I am going out and making changes in my life that a lot of people will not. And a lot of people will look over that and see, they don't know what they're talking about. They've really lost it. And again, I've been there where I was a realist. Well, I saw black and whites, because I think a lot of times things want you to see just in black and white and realize that there is a gray area, and realize that you can live in all worlds. You don't have to confine yourself into a box like everybody wants to label you as something. Why not just be yourself? What are you? Maybe you are a geek, right? Like I'm a huge geek. Maybe you are a gym rat. Maybe you are all these other different things, right? You can label all these other different things. People love, hate you, whatever the case is, just be you. People come into your life for a reason, to teach you things. And you realize that the more, and this is why I talk about, pushing your comfort zone and really trying to figure out who you are. And realize that when you're pushing your comfort zone, you meet people, right? This comes into what I'm talking about like everything happens for a reason. You start meeting people that help you change to where you want to go. And a lot of times the most random people that come in your life, you would have no idea that would make changes in your life. Right? Like you didn't realize that by going on the subway, you met that one person that changed your viewpoint on the world. Maybe that person became part of your world. Maybe they became your best friend. Maybe they became your spouse, or maybe whatever the case is. I think people are placed in strategic places in your life And it's for you to find them and uncover them and see where they fit in your life. And again, people may come into your life very temporarily. Maybe it's just for a couple minutes of your life. Maybe people come into your life for a lifetime, but realize eventually everything is temporary, right? You're living in a human experience. We all will pass. This is why it's important to enjoy the time now and have no regrets. And I try to live by that creed each and every day, because a lot of times you can lose focus and you can get caught up in things and realize that I'm not really enjoying where I am because of society wants me to do something specific, as opposed to creating myself, being myself, realizing that I do like a part of this, I do like a part of that, I do like a part of this. None of it makes sense and none of it mixes together, because by God, nothing can mix together. I'm just going to be me, and I'm going to enjoy being me in whatever it is. Maybe I like sushi, maybe I don't like sushi, maybe, right? Just do me. You have to just be that way. Realize that there is a purpose, and the people and relationships are so important. And a lot of times trying to uncover all this stuff is hard. And I tell myself this many times, is I don't know why things happen for a reason. Sometimes I second guess why I do Discover Ignite, but then I start thinking, my father used to give advice all the time. Everybody in the town knew him, and everybody in the town loved my father because of that fact, because he was extremely helpful, and he always gave advice about things to help people out, whatever avenue in life. And then I start reflecting on my life. Well, I've always kind of been that way, and I've always tried to help people along the way. And then this channel and everything kind of amplifies that and really puts things in perspective that, I'm doing what my father did, but in a greater scale with further reach than what he did. Now, I may not reach everybody, and my message may not be for everybody. And I understand that, because you got to find someone that is relatable to you and to your experiences. And sometimes that's hard. You may see me and be like, well, this guy has no understanding of where I come from, what I'm dealing with. We all have our own problems and concerns. And it's me trying to uncover, reverse engineer what I've done. That's what Discover Ignite is about, is the reverse engineer of what I've done and what I am trying to change in my life, and give you a perspective that will help you do that. Because what it really took was for me to understand somebody else's perspective, but I was willing to listen to someone else's perspective. If you're willing to listen to my perspective, I hope it can change your life tenfold of what it's done mine. And a lot of it doesn't make sense. And it goes back to understanding that a lot of things have reason. Relationships in your life have reason, but you don't understand. And again, it can be extremely frustrating why things are going a specific way, and trying to understand that. And for me, I talk about being patient, because I have to tell myself a lot of times I need to be patient. I need to be patient. I may be working extremely hard on this. I may be trying to do something specific, but I have to realize that, you can only do so much. You have to, grow and foster relationships. You have to grow and foster your business or your job or yourself, right? Your health, all these other things you have to grow and foster and give it time. And over time, the compounding effort allows you to make dramatic changes. And then you realize that all these relationships, this job, all these things that you've been doing, they start to make sense. They've led you you get essentially one breadcrumb at a time to guide you to where you're trying to go. And for myself, again, it doesn't make sense all the time. And I'm becoming, the more I force myself to do it, the more I realize that, you just got to give it. And a lot of times, we like to overthink things, and that never helps. And that logical side, again, tries to give us understanding, give us reason. And so we look for validation, we look for perspective that will align with, these thoughts and these ideas that are possibly negative, that aren't really going to help us and kind of pull us out of the present moment and start really enjoying life and live in the moment. And for myself, I try to enjoy the moment. And we can get caught up in so many different things. Even myself, again, this is why I talk about auditing yourself, because I've gotten to points in my life where I've had to audit myself and say, hey, you're allowing it to get a little carried away here. You need to reel it in and be more present again. And when I talked about, kind of swaying off of meditation and stuff is a great point of that, because sometimes I do get in cycles where I kind of take a break, especially because I read so much throughout the year. I take a break, I cycle off of that. I take a break off of meditation sometimes. And then I realize, man, that I really need to get back into this because I can see where the meditation was really helping me, and I haven't been doing it as much, or you start cutting down a little bit on meditation because you feel like, well, I got to do this other thing, I got to do this, I got to do that. Especially when you are trying to do something like this, like Discover Ignite. When I started it, I overwhelmed myself, and then now, like even doing it now, I'm like, okay, well, let me take a step back. I have to understand that the reason I started this was to help people, essentially, again, reverse engineer what I've done, trying to understand everything that's going on and relaying that information with the tools and the concepts, the ideas, the philosophy, all these other different things, and the mindset that helps you create the person that you want to be, and realize that it is possible. And that for me, I'm not who I am today because it was an overnight thing. I've made changes all throughout my life, and they've been slow, incremental changes. I've overcome one thing and I've moved on to the next. And it's not saying I just overcome that one thing and it was just fixed. I had to still maintain that thing, but I've gotten it to a point to where it's maintained consistently, and allows me to make the changes that I want in my life. And so again, the people and the things and events that happen in your life, the reasoning may not always be black and white. And you may not know for years why things happen. Maybe one day you'll understand why, a good majority. Maybe one day I'll understand why that turning point, when my father passed, I was like that. Before that time, I didn't know what life was like before then, because at that point, my life changed forever. Because you don't see the butterfly effect, because it is only small compounding effects that are slowly changing everything in your life, but you don't see it because you see it every single day. It's not till you get to the grander stage, when I'm 80, hopefully I'm 95, 100 maybe, and I look back and I like, oh, I remember that particular moment in time, those particular people in my life during that specific time. I knew why they were there. I knew why they were there to teach me that lesson. Sometimes you get that lesson many different times through different people, because we haven't learned it. We haven't made an adjustment to it yet. But once we realize that, you know what, I'm tired of this lesson, I'm no longer tolerating this lesson, I'm actually going to focus on this one lesson that I'm not getting, I'm going to make it right. And then that's how you continue to make the changes in your life and understand why the people, events, and those things that happen in your life happen. Then it unfolds. Then you see the grand plan. And so when I am 100, I hope I can look back and say, now I know why those people and events in my life happen the way they did.